Morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bread for Soul Convos with myself, Sir LSG. This is the 70th episode, and we've been doing this every day, every morning, every weekday, 9 a.m. In the morning through the different pages that we are cross posting from, whether it's the Hit Refresh page, my partners at Best Beats, and all of the other pages that we cross post from. But most importantly, I just want to thank you who is watching the show, people who've been watching the show since the beginning, most importantly, but everybody else who's been watching and supporting the show. I really appreciate it, and it just shows that how important knowledge sharing is. Sometimes we see ourselves as so far apart from our idols and our icons and people we aspire to be like. And I've been very fortunate that in this time I've gotten to chat with some of the most inspirational people that I love as an artist. I've looked up to in my own journey, and one of those people, the one of the most soulful producers out there, DJ Spinner, Mr. Vincent Williams. How are you, sir?
I'm good, my brother. I'm good.
Thank you so
Pleasure to
much.
be here.
Thank you.
70 episodes. Wow, that's amazing.
Man, thank you. I mean, it's because of people like you, who are so selfless with their time and their knowledge. Most importantly, I'm really, really, truly honored to have you on the show, bruh. And like you, I mean, we were chatting just before this. You were telling me how you've gotten to become some kind of a wizard with gear and technology stuff. What have you been up to with just specifically asking about the Jenny live streams?
Well, since quarantine here in the States, here in New York, um, I felt the urgency to DJ really and continue my musical services to the musical community at large. I love to play music. I love to provide sounds, and I thought that it was important to get on board really fast to try to figure out how I was going to make this happen at home. So I spoke to a few people, and they kind of walked me through what I had to buy, as far as cameras and applications to download and what have you, just to get set up. And from then on, it was just really scheduling and really balancing too, because I do have a family. I have two children and a wife, and we're all at home. The kids have to be homeschooled,
Mm.
and it's not like for me. I'm a traveling DJ. I travel the world, but now it's a matter of how do I bring what I was doing while I was abroad home
Mm.
and balance family life. It's really not as easy as you would think, even though you're home, because it's actually more chaotic because there's just too many different components.
Mm.
And then, yeah, in the beginning of quarantine, it was madness. It was absolute madness trying to figure everything out. And I'm sure I'm not the only one
Mm.
who had to go through this, whether you're a DJ or not. Just figuring out life and where everything's going and how we're gonna manage. It's just been crazy, but got a better grip on it
Yeah.
despite the odds of COVID-19 and how it's affecting the world. I think what I do as an artist and a DJ is quite essential to people's psyche. People need music. We're seeing how important music is for people to maintain being on lockdown and not socializing. I think we're much more appreciated now than we were being in the public spaces with people.
Mm. And actually, now because you mentioned family, I do have to ask you, man, for somebody who's done this for such a long time, how have you managed to, really make it work, like have a solid career as an artist? Because it's really difficult. It can be rather challenging, as an artist, as a DJ, especially in a music environment where it's rather considered to be underground. Like not a lot of our stuff is really mainstream. I mean, South Africa is an exception when it comes to house music because we still have a strong level of house presence when it comes to mainstream media, whether it's TV or radio. But still, it doesn't make it easier because then there's a lot of DJs, there is a lot of artists, and very not enough platforms for everybody to really showcase what they do, and to really make a living out of it. How have you made or how have you made it possible for you to really sustain yourself, first as a father and as an artist?
Now, are we talking about pre-COVID or during COVID or both?
I think let's say pre-COVID, because I mean COVID situation, we're gonna talk about it and really get stressed. Let's say pre-COVID, because you've managed to do this, for such a long time.
Right. Well, I think in my case, what made my situation unique over the years is I've always delved into different genres. Although I'm widely known for house music now since the 2000s, I came up at a time where, as a DJ, it was important to play everything. So I think that diversity helped, and not sticking to one thing and diversifying and making other options available to you. And as a producer, I came up mainly in hip hop first, and then about 4 or 5 years in, I started switching gears, doing more dance music, more soulful house music. And if anything, I think in a weird way that propelled me in. It opened up other lanes because I was doing traveling and doing countries and spinning in places I never thought I would go, that I would think a lot of hip hop DJs wouldn't even make it to. Um, so, and then as an event organizer and planner, throwing parties and stuff, that also helped as well because, again, it's not a one-trick pony situation. I do different themes. I'm known for the Stevie Wonder parties, wonderful, and celebrating Michael Jackson and Prince music with those events. Um, and Flavors is another brand where it's 90s music across the board. And I've taken these parties started in New York City, and I've traveled with them everywhere. So it's really about creating different situations and making other opportunities available, because house music, I think the problem with the soulful community is at one point it was supported by the music industry, and then in the 90s they pretty much pulled the plug and it went underground again. There weren't many major label artists like CC Peniston and Crystal Waters and Frankie Knuckles, for example. It went back to the underground, and the same thing happened in the clubs. Late 80s, early 90s, the house music club scene was thriving. And then when hip hop took over and it became more mainstream, house music went back underground. And a lot of the DJs had to make their mark overseas, Europe, Japan, South Africa as well, of course. And as an industry, I think it's suffered for a long time, and I think it's still suffering. And now it's being co-opted, and it's turned into something else. So I'm actually really grateful for South Africa. I remember the first time I went out there was maybe 2000, 2001. It was with Greg Maloka had invited me. It was with Kenny Dope and Jazzy B from Soul to Soul. And it was very touching to see how the music was being received and learning the history of it. It's amazing to me. It's a blessing. South Africa's a blessing.
Right.
It really is.
Every time when I hear somebody speak like this about our own country, sometimes I feel like we in South Africa we need to be more proud of it. More proud of what house music has become here in the country, because I speak to a lot of my friends who are either like in the States like you are or in the UK, And the one thing that mainly when I see the difference from what I hear from them is that in South Africa we do have a lot of young people, really being obsessed with house music. It's kind of, I've said this before, that like I feel like house music in South Africa is kind of like football or soccer in Brazil. The kind of culture of everybody or a lot of people wanting to be part of that culture, and not just, yes, some could be for the fame, for the glamour, what they see snapshots of certain successes from other artists, but a lot of people really wanting to be in the scene and doing it right, and I feel like we need, in South Africa, we should be more proud of that fact. But I want to ask you, with regards to um, growing up, especially I'm touching into influences when it comes to house music specifically. Who were your earlier influences when it comes to house?
Um, wow. Well, let's see. Where can I start? Um, I would have to say Larry Levan, Paradise Garage, because I was able to go there at a very early age. I got in at 16,
Damn.
and they didn't serve alcohol. They didn't check ID, so I think that was like the main reason I got in. You had to be with a member to, a member's guest. So I got in and I experienced it for the first time with him in a club setting, and that changed my life forever. And as far as DJs, other DJs and producers, I had local friends that were DJs in Brooklyn. Nobody you would know by name, but they influenced me because they had been going out to house clubs, Paradise Garage in particular, for years, and I learned about the foundational recordings, hanging out with these guys, and learning how to spin the records with their collection and buying the records that I saw them collect early on. And this is like mid 80s, so by 89, 90, when I really started going to clubs and I was of legal age to do so, I was checking out David Morales, for example, and Timmy Regisford, who I would have to say Timmy is probably my one of my biggest influences, because I listened to him on radio first in New York before I was able to hear him in the club, and then by the time I got to the Shelter in New York, the first location on Hubert Street, um, it was like a continuation of what the Paradise Garage was doing. For me, it was the same kind of energy, and similar records were being played, but he just had his own way of putting it together. And then as years progressed, I started getting more into like Louis Vega. Also, I gotta credit Tony Humphries as well, because Tony was on radio really early. He actually ushered in Timmy Regisford and Merlin Bob. So those three guys, Timmy Regisford, Merlin Bob, and Tony Humphries and Larry Levan, are like my first incubative DJs that like I was mesmerized by listening to as a kid, as a teenager.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say I would have to start with them. They're like my major DJ influences,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I want to ask you about, like, because you've got such strong roots in hip hop, and but you also like such a dope house music artist. You like, do you ever have or are you ever conflicted with the two, with regards to uh, firstly I mean, or is it just how you are as an artist, that people receive you as somebody who's got, you know both of these worlds, and comes to play, like, especially when it comes to gigs, um is it always a thing that you, or is it research that, okay, you booked at a house gig, you're gonna play house music, or a hip hop gig, and do likewise, or, I mean, like in South Africa when you came last year or 2 years ago, for Avant-Garde, where it's kind of like an open, canvas, you can do, where you can do anything. Are there ever moments of conflicting between the two genres for you?
Not really for me. I would say the conflict is really with the fans, especially if you've known me for the hip hop thing and all of a sudden, why is he playing house music? Or vice versa. Some people discovered me through house and don't know anything about my hip hop history. But then, you have the avant garde guys. There's a lot of gigs like that I do. But when I'm booked for those, the promoters specifically tell me, just do you and play what you want. And the crowd is open. I can stretch out. So it really depends on the gig. But for me as a DJ, producer, artist, my concentration from hip hop really started to, I won't say change, but I diverted a little bit in the late 90s, early 2000s because I wasn't really feeling the direction that it was going to from what I was used to and what I was experiencing making the records and seeing how the underground and independent movement was thriving. I felt like it became an assembly line, and the music industry just milked it, and they're still milking it, and they're stripping it of the culture. So for me, I'm always about the culture. Even in house music, I'm about the culture. I'm all about the purity, the foundation, where it comes from. Yes, it has to progress, of course, but it can't. You can't negate or forget the roots and the foundation of it, and the people that made the music from the gate what it is today. And I think that's what happened with hip hop. For them, in the grand scheme of things, there's a disconnect. Um, with house music, it's kind of a strange thing because we do have a younger generation, but I think what happened somewhere along the line is the older generation from that Shelter Paradise Garage era, we didn't really teach the younger generation properly. But what happened was the younger kids, they just found their own way. They found a way to make their own scene, throw their own parties. They love the old school, they love the classics, and they will play some of that, but they have their own sound. And the people from my era or the era before me, um, in many ways, they keep the key to the gate and they just put it in their pocket and they don't open it and share. So and you know what's funny is that kind of happened to me in the beginning. Like it wasn't until the Sean Escoffier record, Days Like This, that people really started paying attention. I've always played house music as a DJ since the 80s. I bought all the early Marshall Jeffersons, all the DJ Internationals, the Trax records, the Frankie. I was buying them all. I was still learning about it, but I was experiencing it in the club. And the hardcore house community I feel like they didn't really get me until that record. That's when they realized, okay, I was allowed in.
Yeah.
The secret club. It's just that hip hop kid that makes hip hop. He don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, bruh.
You have to prove the point.
That's one of my many favorite songs from you. And it's such a big song. But I do wanna know though, like, did you know? Cause sometimes when you're in studio, yes, like we love music and you can create and you can, you feel the connection with the music. Most of the time it does happen where you have that moment of magic where things just happen to be right or to sound right. But specifically talking about that record with Sean Escoffery, um, did you feel that way, finishing that record, that this could be a really big song?
Nope. So I'll tell you what happened. Me and Tickler, the keyboard player who played on that record, he's part of Antibalas, he has his own history. But it was a little grueling to put that record together, believe it or not. Just a little bit. Like we did the track. They sent us the original, which is, it's a straight R&B soul record. Good version too, of course. But once we constructed the track of the remix and we sent it back to management, when Sean Escoffier heard it, he said, I love it, and we're going to recut it. he's gonna recut the vocals. So he actually redid the vocals. That was the first time
Ah.
in me doing any remixes when that actually happened.
Mm.
But we had technical issues with tape and just some crazy things that were happening in the session, and we kept having to record it over and over. It was a lot, and um, Tickler at one point was like, "I don't want to hear this song ever again in my life." Like he just got so frustrated. And the funny thing is, once it was done, I remember I played it for Louis at Winter Music Conference that year, 2002, and I traveled. I was in Berlin at one point, or somewhere in Germany, and I was with the Jazzanova guys, and I let one of those guys hear it, and they were like, Louis and the Jazzanova guy was like, "This record is gonna be big," and I was like, "You think so?" They were like, "Yeah, trust me, it's gonna be big. Watch." And lo and behold, it happened. But I couldn't tell you that when we were done. Like I had no idea, and that these things happen. You can never. Sometimes I've been disappointed too. Like you do a record, you think it's going to be massive, and it does nothing. It doesn't go. You can never predict what a song is going to do. You can have a good feeling about it,
True.
but I did not know. And it's crazy. Days like this now is becoming what I don't know if you know how big "Follow Me" by Elias is on Strictly Rhythm,
No.
but it's one of those records that gets played at like family gatherings and backyard parties and you know just an average classic dance record. It's not. It kind of left the the whole like circle of like an average house set that you hear now. You won't hear it. You know what I mean? Because it's just it got overplayed. It became. But Days Like This is becoming one of those records. Like people that don't really listen to house music like that are starting to play it and know it.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
I'm very happy that you guys reprinted the record, and I managed to get myself uh, my hands on it, and like it's such I think, like you say, it is one of those that it's either you have it, right? Like if you have the vinyl, in the past where there used to be such a once 300 copies or 1,000 units are pressed and nothing comes from that after that. It's kind of like, oh man, I missed out on records, but I was so happy when I got it, I think 2 years ago on Juno. And I will talk to you about other remixes that you worked on, but because I was holding a vinyl record, I have to ask you about your obsession with vinyl, because I know you
Mm,
are ridiculously obsessed.
man. Well, yeah. I think I know I have an obsession. I don't know. It's just something that's been with me since I was a little boy. I've been playing records since I was 2, 3 years old, and for me, I always feel a stronger connection to the music when it's on vinyl as opposed to digital. I feel like if it's on digital, you don't really have it because you can't feel it, you can't touch it. Having something tangible to hold on to in vinyl just has never really left me, and even down to the technical side of making records and watching records spin and seeing the grooves on the record and the labels and the artwork and the lyric sheets, all that stuff means something. I've just been buying records for too long to not love it. It's just part of the joy of loving music and being a collector. And that's the only obsession that I really have is vinyl.
Yeah.
I used to be somewhat of a sneakerhead too, but I had to pick the lesser, I had to ditch the lesser two evils, even though music is not evil, but yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I know what you mean. But I also heard that in an interview, you were saying that there was one time where you actually had a dream and you were in a record store, but like it was a dream, like it wasn't real, and you were,
That happens. That
yeah.
happens. It's like you're in a store or you're somewhere and you're listening to a record. You're seeing it, you're hearing it, and you wake up and it's like the record never it doesn't exist. It does it's just it just doesn't exist.
That is
Weird. And I've spoken to a few people that this has happened to. So those people must have the same problem
The
that
same
I
problem. You do indeed have an obsession. But also another obsession, which is not such a bad one. I mean, like, music is never really a bad obsession. But I think being a good producer, one needs to have some certain level of obsession with sounds, and the kind of obsession where you close yourself in a room for 18 hours working on something, and you wake up the next day and you go at it again and again and again. How much of that still happens for you today?
well, it's crazy. Like when I started doing hip hop is, a lot of it based on samples.
Mm.
Um, House music is very similar, except you can choose to sample or you can choose to just get ideas from old music. I don't really go through too much old records these days because I feel like a lot of what I want to put in a track is already here, just from years of listening to all kinds of things. And, I feel like at this point, I'm like a walking encyclopedia when it comes to music. Um, so I don't, the actual process of producing, I don't really have to play old records, but I play old records all the time. That's the thing. It's like, it's so part of my normal functionality that it's not something that I need to specifically do as I sit down to make music. As I'm going along, I'll hear sounds in my head. I'll pull sounds up on the drum machine or the keyboard and just mess around until I find something that I want.
Yeah. And do you still get time though um to spend in studio and like those long hours of production, or is it just dependent on what needs to be done at a certain time?
It really depends on what needs to be done. In fact, since quarantine, it's been harder because I've been spending more time streaming, and streaming, aside from the fact that when I go online, a lot of times I'm spending quite lengthy hours. Like I'm not just doing 1, 2 hours. I should be, but you know, when I do it for myself, I can't stop. I love DJing. Maybe that's my other obsession too.
Yeah.
So studio has taken a hit a bit, but the urge is still there. I have a lot of work to do. I've been working on an album for years that I haven't completed yet. But when it's time to do remixes, that's usually when I have to really buckle down and get it done because most of the time the labels have deadlines, the artists have deadlines, and I need to meet them. Sometimes I have people waiting a little too long. Like, get it done eventually.
Yeah,
Again.
yeah. I remember I waited for quite some time, like when you did my remix on Gogo. This
Yeah,
was in 2013 with Brian Temba. But I
yeah.
mean, like, I've been such a such so blessed to have someone like you remixing my work. And just talking about remixes, I want to ask you, um, which remix, like, besides the, I mean, Days Like This was quite huge. I've got some of my own favorites, but which other ones would you say really blew your mind at how well they were received?
Space Rider, which is the other Sean Scofield record, and I'll have to say, credit Timmy Regis for this because, some DJs when they play a song, they own it. Even though you made it, another DJ can play it and actually own it like it's theirs.
Yeah.
And he did. He brought me to tears with that record at the shelter like a few times, because he was running it a few times a night for weeks. And one time I remember he would always take 2 copies of it and run the synth solo back to back and play it for like 20, 30 minutes. And one night he did that and ended the club with the lights on and everything with that track. And people started clapping, and I was in the booth like, I was like, I was like teary eyed. I was like, damn, I can't believe he did this. But that's one of them. Um, what else? Oh, the ICU Ananda Project. That's another one. Crossroads. I know that's big in South Africa. That's another one that's quite magical.
Massive, massive.
Um, there's quite a few. There's quite a few. The remix for Stephanie Cook, If I Had to Change, that's another
Oh
one.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely. That was
yeah,
licensed
this.
by Greg Maloka, right? On one of his compilations. I think it was called What's Fat Pussycat
Oh
One.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
super song, super song. I do have to ask you about this remix though. Like this is like, bruh, and if you do have a copy, an extra copy on vinyl lying around, man, please, if you, it would be such an honor. This the remix you did for Al Jarreau, Random Act of Love. Firstly, how did that come about? Was it an official remix that you did?
Right. So that was an official remix through Verve, which is a legendary jazz label, Verve Universal Music. And unfortunately, it didn't come out. It was only a promo CD. It wasn't even pressed on vinyl. It was. I think there's a bootleg vinyl or something floating around that someone did in the UK, but it never got an official vinyl release. And I've actually tried to license it for my Sound Beyond Stars compilation for BBE,
Mm.
and they rejected it. I couldn't clear it. I was trying to get it on vinyl. I was trying my best, but it didn't get cleared for some reason. So it's only a promo CD. So if you want it legitimately, that's the way to get it.
Yeah, I mean,
And it came through management. My managers at the time hooked me up with that. Shout out to Purpose Music Group. They got me that gig.
why wouldn't a label want to release? I mean, such a dope song. I don't really get it.
You would be surprised. Sometimes it's the artist. Sometimes it's the A&R that doesn't have the vision. Um, I did a remix for Anita Baker, and she hates remixes. I did a remix for "You're My Everything" when she was signed to Blue Note, and nothing happened. I still got paid for it and everything. Just didn't go through.
Wow, bruh.
And I would say that pretty much every major house producer that you know goes through that.
I mean,
Just sitting
sorry,
doing things that just never came out.
bruh. And I remember talking to Nick Holder, from Toronto, Canada. I don't know if you know him, but
What?
yeah, sure, sure. So Nick did this massive song "Summer Days," which was really a sample of Pat Metheny's
Amen.
"Slip Away." And I had him on the show, and he was telling me just about how much money he'd lost. He basically lost everything because the label wanted everything back, but they were not credited. But actually, when they found out about the song, they didn't even want to hear anything about house music or remix. They just wanted to get their money back for everything that he got. Um, and I asked him this because sometimes when you want to do things right, like you write to the label or you write to the artist, and everything's done, or they might not even give you, a second to listen to you. They might not have any time for you, as soon as you say you're a house music artist. Why do you think house music has gotten um, less respect as a form of soulful music, especially among the general soul music industry?
Well, it's two-part conversation to what you just said. I don't think that the denial of the clearance has anything to do with house music. I think it has more to do with the artists just not having or caring about the vision. And some people just don't like their music being tampered with, especially without their permission and clearing it. So if it was done after the fact, they're like, hell no. Give me all your publishing, give me all the money that you made.
Mm.
Or if it's sometimes there's been situations where a record's already done, about to come out, and then the label tries to clear it and it's denied and they can't put it out. It's just it has to be shelved. They have to get a cease and desist and they can't release it. But as far as house music, it's all about money. I mean, at the end of the day, if that's the one thing I can say about hip hop. In the beginning, there were a lot of older artists just frowning on that industry because they didn't like what it stood for, and some of the messages and what have you. But hip hop has single handedly saved and revitalized the careers of a lot of artists from a certain era. You know, from the '60s, '70s, even '80s, and now the '90s too. You know, the people are starting. The younger kids are sampling '90s because that's their '70s and their '60s music. But there's a lot of money in hip hop. You know, it's generated billions, of dollars, and if a record blows up, the artists, if it's cleared and they're getting a percentage of the publishing and the royalties, they can live. They can do really well. And I think if house music were to, if it was as big, there wouldn't be any issues really. The only thing it will boil down to is whether the artist wants their music touched or not. And some artists don't like their music being sampled at all. It doesn't matter what you do with it. They're just like, don't touch my shit. Pardon my French. Just leave it. Don't touch it. There's some artists that are just difficult to deal with and clear.
And because you mentioned this point, do you think, or let me ask it this way: what do you think are some of the things that could be done in order to promote house music more as a form of art that's sellable, that's like, that can really create or generate a lot of income? Because I think it's good in SA that we've got this scene, but like I said to you earlier, I feel like for most of the part it hasn't really resonated, or it hasn't really I don't know what the word is, but like the fact that house music is so big, it hasn't translated. Yeah, that's the word that I wanted to say. It hasn't translated into this big economic thing that I believe that it could be. What are some of the things that you think could be done, especially when you look at a scene like South Africa? How can house music be promoted more, not only here locally, but also to reach other parts of the world?
Well, when I think about your question, I think about the days when the glory days of house, when things were on an upswing and it was considered a viable form of art in the music industry. It was during a time when it was marketable. There was a thriving club scene globally to push the music. You had departments and record labels that were designated to promote and push and market. You had artists. There were budgets, but unfortunately, the music industry doesn't support soulful house. And I think what needs to be changed is, South Africa is kind of its own thing because you guys have an industry in that music that's kind of like it's unto itself compared to the rest of the world. Like you go there and you're just like, wow, you can't believe it's as big as it is. I see black coffee as your biggest export. I think that if there were more black coffees, whether they're DJs or just artists that made international hit records, that's a step in the right direction. You just need, and here in the States is the same thing. Like we just need that support of our artists, and artists need to start taking they need to look at, it can't, there has to be a balance between underground and commercial, so to speak, because obviously if something gets commercial, it gets watered down. But when I think about when 10 City was huge, or when CeCe Peniston was huge, and when Crystal Waters was huge, even Lil Lewis, in the world, when he had his deal with Sony CBS doing French Kiss and what have you, and Club Lonely, and Frankie Knuckles on Virgin, like there was major support. There was money put behind these artists, and they were able to make videos and cross over. Obviously, things have changed now. The models are different, and I don't even know. I can't really tell you where the music industry is going. I think it's they're hanging on by a thread, literally, because people are becoming more independent these days. You don't necessarily need that middle man being the labels to thrive. Everybody wants to sell their own music themselves. You can get your digital distribution going, and get, if you have some money to get behind push to get marketing behind you. It's all about putting a face to the music. It can't, if it's just underground, it won't leave the club. It won't get bigger than the club. The club is great, but for it to become part of a, be a viable asset, for sponsorship and these corporations to put money into it, they have to see it viable. And the only way to do that is to, like, create something that's bigger than what it is now. It's almost like a oxymoron in a way, because the music started off underground. In a way, like, do we want it to be as big as what David Guetta is? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be a balance somewhere. A healthy balance. Maybe not as big as a Tiesto or David Guetta, but it just has to make sense, within the genre itself, and go as big as it can, being what it is naturally without getting watered down. Airplay. That's another impressive thing about South Africa. You guys support your artists on the radio during the day, and amazing. We lost that here in the States. In Europe and England, yeah, some records do make it to radio, and I would say next to South Africa, the UK is probably the next biggest market for that music. But over here, it's suffering. We used to have, in New York specifically, weekend, Friday, Saturday night dance parties on the radio. And when that stopped, I mean, we only have Louis now on major radio station here on WBLS, which is great. But and Timmy Regisford used to be on the radio. Like, we used to hear mixes. This was a tradition, and that tradition stopped. And when you listen to radio, it became more about commercials. Like, it's not about DJ culture and mixing anymore. The mixes get interrupted every 20, 30 minutes because the sponsors need to come in to push product, because that's how the radio stations get played. Back in the days, you would get a good hour, straight of just DJing. And that's how I learned how to DJ, by listening to radio. That was part of the experience. You can't get that now. It's out the window. It's less about the art and the culture and more about the dollars. And that actually translated into the club scene as well. That's why the club scene in the States just changed, because bottle service took over, rents got higher, club owners and promoters, it's about the bar. You gotta, pop bottles and reserve tables, and where's the music gets kicked to the curb at that point. And I'm saying that as someone who throws parties as well, not being able to get into venues because they don't want us there, because dancers don't typically drink for the most part. It's sloppy. Can't get drunk on the dance floor. So, it became about the music that influences the bar. Drugs too. It's another part of it. It's hard. I get what your question is, but how do we balance that out? The music is spiritual. You know what I mean? Like, this music, we need to get back to a point where the music can thrive in organic spaces where alcohol doesn't dictate the business, and you can just have a room of people gathering and enjoying the music, with one goal, to be uplifted, without all of the outside noise that could essentially hurt the music. The music should always come first, and that's how club culture started, but that trajectory got lost a long time ago.
But just in terms of platforms, I believe that right now, going into the future, we as artists have an upper hand with regards to where we could take our art forms, and how popular the art forms could be. And the reason I say that is that social media is, I believe that it's so much undervalued. Yes, I see artists, myself included, like, promoting themselves on social media and doing a lot of different things directly to the fans, but I believe that if we put more focus on it, into creating content, into really showing the fan, bringing the fan much closer than they have been with regards to what we do, how we create music, how we, like you do with your live streams. I think it's such an important thing. In the long run, this will now cause, instead of having the commercial playing on radio, the commercial could now be playing in on your live stream, because you've got 20,000 people tuning in at a time. You've got eyes. Then it becomes easier for you to kind of pull brands into what you do without losing the essence of what you do. And I think artists, it's high time that, yes, in South Africa we do have a big support of mainstream media compared to other countries, but still, I believe that that could change. That depends on another person. That depends on the playlisters at the radio stations, and those people change over time. The people who were in charge of radio 10 years ago, where really soulful house music, deep house music was playing on literally every radio stations, it has changed over the years. And I think that those changes are out of our hands, out of our control. They will always happen. But something that's definitely within our control is these platforms like these, that we can create on our own to grow our own brands and to promote our music. But I want to ask you, brother, about your work experience with Stevie Wonder. I was watching an interview, and actually didn't know that you produced, or you co-produced the song on Robert Glasper's remake of Miles Davis' album, Everything Beautiful. And I actually used to think, did really Robert Glasper do a house song? And nobody made noise about it. Only to find out DJ Spinna was in the production. How was that for you, especially considering that you were working with Stevie Wonder playing the harmonica?
So how that came about was there's another silent uh, executive producer on that project. His name is Rashad Smith, and he brought me in. And I basically was told the concept of the album was to take any element from Miles Davis' catalog and revamp it. Robert Glasper had access to the vault, the Miles Davis Sony catalog. What I chose to use was a track from Miles Davis's Jack Johnson album, and the track was called Right Off. So I sampled a track from that, a horn line from that composition, and me and Chris Robb, amazing keyboard player artist, constructed Right On Brother. It was like we retitled it as an ode to that song. And then Vashad actually came up with the idea. He was like, you know what? You should try to get Stevie on this. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. So I chased Stevie for months. It almost didn't happen. I chased him, couldn't get him on the phone. And it just so had, I actually reached out to his attorney, who I'm tight with, and he pulled the strings, and then I got on the phone with Stevie, and he was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I didn't get to go in the studio with him physically, but I sent him the track. I kind of gave him my direction, and he did the harmonica piece and sent it back. Of course, I was mesmerized, couldn't believe this was actually happening, and the rest is history. Put the track together, and I brought in a harpist, Brandy Younger, and a sax player whose name is escaping me right now. Oh man, I gotta pull it up on my phone to remember. And we put that track together, and it was mesmerizing. So Glassberg actually didn't have anything to do with the song beyond it being on his project.
Yeah.
The album had like Erykah Badu and Bilal and Hiatus Coyote and a bunch of amazing artists who basically did their own Miles Davis interpretations or reinterpretations and cover songs. So Right On Brother was just a contribution to
Yeah.
that project.
I mean, the saxophone player you forgot is Lakeisha Benjamin.
Yes, Lakeisha.
Yeah.
Forgive me, Lakeisha, if you're watching this. Yes, Lakeisha Benjamin
Yeah.
smashed it.
Definitely
Yeah.
did. Man, I really like hope that more people would have jumped on that record because Robert Glasper is such a big artist, you know. And that's another thing, like when I hear house music done by somebody like Robert, or you hear something done by Anderson Park, which to me sounds like house. You know, he's just rapping over it or singing over it, but it's dance music. You know, it's something that I feel like we are not so as far apart from each other as we might seem to be. We might seem to think. You know, definitely
You
not.
know what? I will say this: if Miles Davis was still alive today, he would have made house records. I promise you, he would have made house records because he embraced every genre of music from the time he started, whether it's rock, whether it's African, whether it's jazz, funk, obviously. He did it all, and even hip hop. Like Easy Mo B produced his last studio album. He had rappers on the album. You know what I'm saying? So he was still alive. He's like a Herbie Hancock. Herbie Hancock is another one who embraced every style. I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a Joe Cozell remix of a Herbie Hancock track with Shaka Khan singing on it, and Joe confirmed to me that it was in the studio with Herbie doing.
Wow.
So Herbie is playing keys on this track in the studio. So you have some artists that are all about that progression and seeing things move forward and not get stuck in the past. And these are the same artists that faced a lot of criticism when they decided to. Herbie's one of them. Miles is one of them. Donald Byrd is another one. There's artists that they just see the future. They don't want to be pigeonholed in one thing. They always want to keep things moving, and Miles is one of them for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, with my own productions, I've been doing that, but I've been doing that in a sense where I'm calling everybody that I like from different genres and coming together to create house music. On my album, I co-produced a lot of the stuff with a pianist from South Africa called Tandin Tuli. One of the best we have here, and she's performed in the States sometime last year at the jazz at the Lincoln Center with I forgot the trumpeter's name. Anyway, but I've been doing it one dimensional where the music will still sound like house music, even though it's soft, it's musical. There's a lot of live instrumentation, but I've been thinking and really in studio thinking about producing a more inclusive kind of record where I've got elements of jazz, but it really sounds like a jazz song. It sounds like a hip hop song or an R&B song, and obviously do some house. And you've done that in your Intergalactic Soul album, which I've been playing for years. Such a dope album. Will we see in your next project? Will we see you doing that kind of diverse sound again?
Absolutely. I mean, for the next album that I've been planning, there will be jazz elements, but I was definitely trying to focus more on the dance floor. But that could change. I'm only halfway through the record, and it really just depends on how I'm feeling at the time. But when I started making the record, because all of my contemporaries, well, not all, but a lot of the ones that I admired, have made these great albums, but they're straight dance, they're straight house for the most part. And I felt like I needed to do that as well, just so I could put a stamp on it, because I've done everything else. I've done the hip hop, eclectic stuff. So I always wanted to do like a straight four to the floor, even tempos that may not be as fast, but still kind of clubby. You know what I mean? And then balance it out with house stuff. But that could change. We're in a different climate now. We're in COVID world.
Yeah.
People are not in the clubs, so I might have to go back to eclectic and diversify the sound again. Might throw a jazz thing. Yeah, who knows? Might do a Brazilian record. I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Man, I really hope that you do more house records. Like when you last year, I mean, in 2018, you gave us another classic. The song you did tonight we ride with Fonte from the Foreign Exchange, and I was like,
Right.
man, if I could get more of this from DJ Spinner, my life will be
Look,
made. I just wish that for house music people, and I know I'm not speaking only for myself. I wish to see you doing more original Spinner work, man. Because
I will. I
yeah,
will. It's in the immediate plans. Actually, I have the Wonder Wax label, and I have a few things already lined up. And one thing that I also feel like I haven't done enough of. I know you want more tonight we rides, but I want to do more tracks. There's not a lot of spinner tracks out there. Just tracks, no vocals, like
I
just
hear
straight
you.
ahead
I hear you.
tracks.
Mm,
I'm in that. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not saying that's all I'm gonna do, but I want to spit out a few 12 inches like that because I've always been so vocal, soulful house, vocal arrangements and song oriented my entire house
mm-hmm.
career.
Yeah.
But I know I have it in me to produce some tracks too. Just mess
Sure.
around, experiment. I did something for local talk, TB or not TB, a couple years ago that kind of alluded to that whole idea of track.
Mm,
Acidy kind of experimental, spacey. It's still my galactic sound,
mm,
um, but I want to get more into that. Definitely want to get just beautiful instrumental pieces and lushed out and even techie stuff, whatever. Just vibe and just go.
yeah. I want to talk a bit about your events, but before we do, I want to get through this um, close the Stevie Wonder topic, because even though you've never worked with him in studio together, but you've seen him in studio. You went to his studio, and you've had the experience of or how he does what he does. Can you please share with us what you experienced there?
Well, actually, I did program a beat for a track while I was there, um, and laid it down. And I have no idea if anyone will ever hear it because he's the kind of guy that just works on music constantly and just sits. His catalog is the vault is on fire. Just thousands of records that we will probably never hear. But working with him in the studio was I had to get rid of I had jitters. Like I was really nervous just being in that setting, not knowing because if you start thinking about his accomplishments and the legend that he is, it will make anyone pretty much nervous. It's something you would have to get used to by actually working with him. I can tell that in the little bit of time in that day that I spent with him, that you can tell that he's always been in control of his output, but that he also accepts opinions from people that he respects.
Mm.
And it's up to you, comfortable enough, to let him know. You know, I I was like in the middle. How do you tell Steve what you think about something? If you didn't think something was cool,
Mm.
how do you tell him, eh?
Mm.
So in the time that I was there, I saw him program. This completely blew my mind. Like he had a MIDI keyboard, and he finger drummed the whole drum beat live to tape
Mm.
as the track was playing. So he's hitting the kick, snare, hi hat,
Yeah.
just playing the beat with his fingers live
Damn.
to tape. So that was just like
Damn.
evil, right? And then on playback, he said, "No, I don't really like it," and he went on the drum kit and did live drums. He replaced what he did with live drums.
Oh damn.
So that alone was enough.
Sure.
I just chalked it up like I can die now. I've seen it. I've seen enough today. And then aside from that, he played me like about three tracks from an album that he was working on that will probably never come out because he just does that. He just works. He comes up with all these ideas. Yeah, I'm going to put this out. I want to do this record, and we never hear it. I mean, the last studio album from Stevie was A Time to Love in 2005. So when I say it's been a long time and he works on, it's not like he's not working on music. He's always working on music, but you know, he has a lot going on in his head. What can you do?
I mean, he's Stevie Wonder. He can do whatever the hell he wants, right? Like,
right. And not only that, what I always tell people is, we're talking about somebody that became a pop star at 13 years old. His first major hit was Fingertips. He was 13, and he kept going and going and going and going. So, and he made his mark. He's done a lot of things. He broke a lot of records, #1 albums consecutively. What do you say to somebody? You can't force them. You can't force them to make a record. Like, they just have to do it when they want to do it. At that point, it's like whatever. As fans want it. As fans, we're just like, come on, we need you right now. But all we can do is wait.
Yeah, for sure, bro. And your events with the wonderful events, I heard that those parties, the queue just goes around the block, because so many people want to be in that party. How can you explain to people who have never been there, how is the vibe at the wonderful events?
When the wonderful is like church. Maybe if you've never been to church, it's like church. It's just it's a spiritual event. It's because of the music that's being played and how it's being presented. People really get to indulge in his catalog in a way that you wouldn't just listening to his albums at home. And in many places where the party happens, it's become a family affair, gathering every year. People look forward to it. They fly in for it. And, there's records that are played at certain times of the night, like As and Songs in the Key of Life is the peak song. When that comes on, it's going to be crazy mayhem. And the way I play it, I usually run it 2 copies for like 15, 20 minutes. I work the record to its apex. I play ballads. I play some of his love songs in the end. I'm playing album cuts. I'm playing cover versions, jazz versions, even reggae versions, or stuff that he's written for like Third World, for example. Like, it's just Latin versions, Brazilian versions, hip hop versions. It's just a mosh pit of Stevie, literally across the board. I try to educate people, but also play the hits, play the stuff that people know, and play album cuts, play things that people may not necessarily know he produced or wrote. It's amazing to me till this day, almost 20 years later, doing these events, that I would play certain records that you would think by now people knew he produced or wrote, like Michael Jackson, I Can't Help It. And I still get that reaction, like, he wrote? Really? Wow, I had no idea, But that's what it's about. And one thing I love about it is a lot of families were created from these events. People have met on the dance floor at Wonderful. There's a lot of people that bring their parents or their grandparents. So you have it's multi-generational. You have it's like a big family affair, like I said earlier. It's magical. It's a really magical event.
And another big one is the MJ parties that you do with Spike Lee. I heard that sometimes you guys reach over 30,000 people attending the event. I'm like, 30,000, that's a festival, How is the atmosphere there?
Wow. Well, to set the record straight, I had been doing Michael and Prince celebrations prior to Michael's death. So when 2009 came around, a few people dropped my name because he wanted to start doing Michael Jackson tributes, and everyone was pretty much like, "You got to get Spinner," because he's been doing this for years. So we've been doing this since 2009, and the first one was in a big park in Brooklyn, Prospect Park, and it was a huge celebration outdoors. 50,000 people.
Damn.
Probably at that point, definitely the biggest event I had ever done. And it's another magical experience, you know. People get to celebrate Mike in a way that I don't think he celebrated like that anywhere. You know, what I love about that one though too is that it's in Brooklyn, which is my hometown, and you just get everyday people. It's free outdoors, so it's kids. There's older folks. Um, there's activities that kids can do like face painting, and this it's another community affair. It's not just about partying per se. People gather and they look forward to that as well. And a lot of guests have shown up. It's like surprise guests. Spike attracts that kind of attention. Sometimes we have to call people in, and sometimes people just show up. We've had Maxwell, we've had Erica Badu, we've had Snoop Dogg one year, we had Fat Joe another year. We had JT, the lead singer from Kool and the Gang, last year. That was pretty cool. No, 2 years ago. So people just pop up and they just get on stage. Did I say Maxwell? Maxwell performed. And it's a treat for the crowd. They don't know who's gonna show up, and people just pop up and do their thing for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and leave. It just adds more to the hysteria.
Yeah. Bruh, I really do wish to attend one of those events, whether it's the wonderful one or the Michael Jackson and Prince one, just to have an experience of how you do what you do. I want to ask you about South Africa and your experience, because you were here last year, brought by the guys at Avant-Garde Vintage, not Vintage Lab, they just go by the name of Avant-Garde right now. But the guys have been in the event space for quite some time. They used to do a monthly event, just based on different types of music that is less accessible on mainstream media. And really, they've grown the brand, but now they've been doing twice a year type of events. The one you came for, I think it was I can't remember if it was the celebration or it was.
It was an anniversary. I think it was an anniversary, like a 2 year anniversary.
Oh yeah. And I remember going at Carfax. I had a lot of work during that time, but I was like, man, I can't miss DJ Spinna's set. Even if it's just for an hour, just to check it out. And the atmosphere was really dope. What did you feel about the whole experience, specifically about the event, Avant-Garde Vintage? I keep on saying Vintage Lounge because it used to be their monthly event. Anyway, about the Avant-Garde event, yeah.
Well, I was impressed at how these guys curated this event, and it wasn't house specific. And all the DJs killed it. DJ Bubbles just rocked my head. Like he played after me, and I was like, man, I was blown away. I was blown away at the knowledge of music outside of the house realm, and the response. Like when I played Tonight We Ride, and I played the Louis Vega remix I did, Better Day.
You started with that remix, I remember very well.
Yeah, and the reaction I got, I was overwhelmed. I was truly overwhelmed because I hadn't been to South Africa in a while. That was the first thing. It was like, I think the last time I was there was maybe 10 years prior, 11 years prior, something like that. So it was a while. And the sense that I got was this party was a void being fulfilled. That, although house is as big as what it is, you have a whole section of people that just love good music. They just, they want to hear different styles, and it's not just about house, which is great,
Mm.
And on a personal level, they were people lined up to greet me, and that was also very overwhelming too. Like it was, yeah, it was touching. It was touching, and it was great to actually connect with the audience and have conversations and sign autographs and what have you. Like that was a great experience for me, and it just made me feel honored and appreciated in a way that I don't really feel that kind of love in most places that I go. I think South Africa is it holds a special place in my soul for different reasons, but just being in Africa, period, is a major deal. The fact that the music is what it is there is
Mm.
amazing to me, and it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
from a historical standpoint, it makes the most sense.
And I do have to ask you though, like, why or will we see you um playing regularly again in South Africa? Because I mean, another 11 years is too long to wait, because um I always feel like, yeah, it's so dope seeing some guys come here really on a regular. Like Rocco is one of them. Ed Jazz doesn't really come a lot, but he does still come. But I feel like a lot of our heroes, you being one of them, is it a difficult thing? Let me just start there. Actually, um, is it a lot of work to bring someone like you over to South Africa? I mean, it's a long flight.
Yeah, the flight doesn't really bug me. It was really just being trustworthy of whoever the invite was coming from.
Mm.
Um, and of course, the money, has to be on point. But I'm at the point now where when COVID is over, I'm just trying to come out there, period. Like, gig or not, I just want to come, bring the family, hang out, you know, get the gigs, that's cool. But I think it's important to experience the country
Mm.
and learn more about the culture and history and just connect with people, connect with fans as well. And of course, the gigs would be amazing. Yes, I definitely need to play, but
Yeah.
um, I just gotta get there. I gotta be out there, man. Because I think it's important to my existence. I should say,
Yeah.
it's I just need to be there.
Mm. And if I have to ask about other things besides the music, what else about South Africa did you experience that you feel that you need to see more of?
Well, went to Soweto. Um, didn't have much time there, but I want to spend more time there
Mm.
and just see what really goes on. I want to experience the real.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? It's not just about being in Joburg and going to the gigs and being in the areas that touristy spots. Like I want to be with the people and
Mm.
just feel it, like for real, feel it.
Yeah.
Uh, have because that actually translates to me, and I would say probably to any human being in the creative process when the depths of the people in the country and the experiences and learn. I mean, when I first went out there, I was um, I was moved just learning about apartheid and the history behind that and the experiences of youthful culture and I think all of that matters. I like learning about different cultures anyway, but this is Africa.
Mm. Yeah.
It's where we come from as a people. So um, it's important for me to get more intel
Mm.
and learn about the realness, if
Mm.
you will. Um, I just love it. I love it all, and the food too.
I was about to ask
And
you about the food. What did these guys feed you when you were here? Is there anything that you remember?
no, we went to a local restaurant near what is the name of the brand? There's a shop that I went to. Um,
Was it in
can't
Soweto?
remember. Yeah, it's a pretty popular brand. Some local brothers. I'm forgetting the name at this moment, but we went. But it was
Was it
I forget the name of the dish.
Thesis?
Thesis.
Yeah,
Yes, thesis. So I went to a restaurant that was maybe not far, like a few blocks away from there. And that was food was good. Food was good. It was
yeah,
just chicken and um this kind of mashed thing. Forgetting what it's called, but it was good. But I like stuff like that. My family's, we're from Central America. There's a lot of Caribbean roots, and I eat a lot of island food anyway. So it's very close to what I had that day.
yeah.
I'm into food from the earth, you know, yams and stuff like that. So it all makes sense.
Sure.
It all makes
Man,
sense to me.
when Terry Hunter was here, we gave him some cow intestines, and I mean he went in, like he really went in. I was like, and I remember him telling me that when he went back to Chicago, and Monique Bingham was in the country, he literally asked Monique to bring him a sauce that he had at a restaurant while he was in South Africa. I was like, no, I need to have that sauce. So, bruh, I really hope that you come back again, but for a much longer stay. To see, firstly, like, obviously musically, to see, the broader scope of the country. Maybe go to Durban, go to Cape Town, and experience the inland areas as well. The gigs there. I think you'll definitely enjoy yourself. Probably even more than you did in Johannesburg.
Oh, I'm sure. I know I will. I know
Yeah,
that for a fact. I have no question in my mind. I will definitely.
for sure,
You know what
bro.
I'm saying? Because it kind of just makes me understand more about how things work and why the music resonates the way it does. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like
mm,
that means a lot, and it will definitely influence the music I make.
yeah,
It
yeah.
definitely will. We have our own set of history here. It's great to learn about the history there as well.
Mm,
And the music that comes out of it.
mm, mm,
I grew up listening to Hugh Masekela and Maria Makiba. That music was played in my household. So
mm.
when you go into their history, you learn about you know being exiled and all this stuff. It's like I actually interviewed uh um why am I blanking out? Greg, and you might have to do some editing here, bro.
No, it's cool, bro.
um,
It's chill.
damn, why am I forgetting his name right now, bro? This sucks. My brain is off. My brain is sleeping right now. But yeah, I conducted an interview just trying to get some more history on the origins of house music.
Are you talking about
And
Greg?
yes,
Greg Maloka?
Greg, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, yeah, cool. Yeah,
Um,
Greg, he's one of the guys. I mean, the legends. In the South African music scene, specifically, like for me, seeing somebody who's a house DJ, a deep underground house music, enthusiast, who gets into important positions. Like he works himself into important positions because at some point he was the station manager for a youth radio, that used to be really the buzz of on radio when it comes to South African radio, and youth. It's called YFM, and he went on. Right now, he's I think managing director of KFM, and KFM in South Africa is plays the most soulful music. There is no other station that plays as much soul as KFM does, and the station is growing. It started as a small, um, I wouldn't say community station, but it was a regional station. It still is, but the reach has really grown much more. But I think more importantly, just the reason I'm noting it is that when you have somebody who's coming from the underground, who's knowledgeable about the music, it does relate. Like you can hear it in the station because Kai FM, for what it stands for, it's because of what he stands for, Greg, as a person, as a music lover, and we need more people like that in important positions like radio, like television, and just to be the promoters of the music. And sometimes it's not even that our music. There's nothing wrong with our music, to be honest. It's just that people who are in charge are not really understanding of what we do. I just think that is, and having people like Greg, such a bonus and a plus for the whole scene. Um, just in closing, I wanna ask you about your future work. I mean, I know you said you packed studio for a bit, but what are some of the things that you really need to get going in studio?
Um, I mean, at this present time, like right now, like right now. um, as I said, I want to start making tracks. I'm actually working on something right now, trying to put out a 3-track EP on my Wonderwax label. Um, I'm working on a remix for Halix M. I just finished something for Jackie Queens
South African.
featuring that just finished that, and I just finished something last 2 weeks ago for Lisa Shaw, and I finished something for Brazilian Soul Crew featuring Jocelyn Mathieu from Paris. So yeah, this quarantine has been pretty busy. Also, another track with Omar. It's an artist named Glow from Houston here. She's a producer, and she has an album out under the name Glow, and she has a track with Omar. So I just did a remix for that as well. That's actually out right now, like this week. So you can look that up as well. So I've been pretty busy in the studio. Just not as much of a studio rat as I'd like to be, but I am getting busy for sure.
Yeah, I can't.
Got to.
There is this. Sorry to cut you. There's this remix. I'm just trying to look for it. I'm forgetting the name of the guys now. The names of the duo. But South African guys. You also recently did a remix for them, which came out. Um,
Oh yeah. Um, Augmented Soul.
Augmented Soul. Yeah, what a song, bruh.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what a gem.
Thank
What a gem.
Oh, and then Julian Gomez too,
Oh,
featuring one of your own, Zaki
Zaki
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Stay. That came out as well. That came out actually it's on vinyl, which I was surprised that it came out on vinyl, but I just pressed it up.
Yeah, they just pressed the vinyl, right? Like a month ago or something like that.
Yep.
Bruh, I want to say, firstly, thank you so much for spending your time and sharing your stories and knowledge with me and with everyone who's watching. I really have so much respect for you, bruh. Like, so for
Thank
me
you.
to be sitting like this with you, it really does mean a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. All I can say is I can't wait to come back. I can't wait. Think about it quite often.
Yeah, and you will, bruh, and you will. And I think, um, be- just this period also for me it has given us this a better outlook as to maybe like we need to really take care of what we love, what we say we love. I think we need to really do more of it, and I do believe that when the time comes and the clubs are open and the scene is back again, I do believe that it will be, if anything, much better than it was before. It might feel strange, but when it really comes back, I really do believe that it's gonna be, that we're gonna have the best times of our lives. So yeah, I do wish you come back, man. Like really, and like I say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. See the country, maybe do some more collaborations as well while you're here and the works.
Oh yeah, that's a must. That's a must. I actually man, I went in the studio with what's the guys from Bafiki Zolo?
Theo.
Right. So years ago, what's the man, what's the brother, man, that basically he's one of the founders of house music in South Africa. That's the name I'm trying to remember right now. For some reason I can't
Oskido.
I can't Boom. I interviewed Osquito at his house.
Oh yeah.
Yes, big up Osquito. I interviewed him at his house. So it was him and Greg
Oh
for my
yeah.
own for my own podcast.
Do you
And
still have the audio for that?
yeah, I still have it. Yeah, I'm gonna put it out one day. I still have to edit it and stuff, but I got a lot of great information from that. And it was really touching,
Mm.
a great experience to get that information. Because I did it because I really think it's important for people to understand how big the music is in South Africa, but not just how, but why and how it all
Mm.
came to be. With
Mm.
the origins of it, origins like why,
Mm.
how did this start? Because we don't really see stuff like this happening anymore.
Mm.
It's it is what it is. It just is what it is. It's huge there. It's the biggest. I told people for years, you have no idea. You can't even imagine how big this music is. How much a lot of us we go down there and we're like highly revered, and you go to other places in the world and it doesn't even matter. You don't really matter. You know what I'm saying? Like house music is big in South Africa, but it's big for a reason. So that's why I conducted those interviews. I'll put it out one day. I'll drop you a line when it's
Please
ready.
do, bro. Please do. But like a very important line I really need from you is the that Algeru remix, man. Like maybe I should have been asking this after we recorded, but like it's out there. I really,
See,
if you,
that's another one. Like it kind of blows me away that that song of all the remixes I've done, that's one of the biggest ones. But I attribute that once again to radio because I know that Greg supported that track
mm,
heavy.
mm.
He supported it heavy, and it just shows you how important it is to have that support. Media is a big deal. The thing you were talking about earlier about creating these channels and opportunities for artists or whatever. It's like the more you push and the more people see, it permeates the brain and it becomes
Mm.
part of your everyday psyche. That's how a lot of the garbage music gets promoted.
Mm.
The stuff that a lot of us don't really care for. You
Mm.
end up liking it because you're programmed.
Mm.
So we need to program people to like the good stuff.
Exactly, exactly.
There's only two kinds of music: it's good and bad. So we got to push more good into the world.
For sure, bro.
That's
For sure. I think we can pack it here. And firstly, to people who are watching, thank you so much for watching this. This platform is actually growing because somebody's watching, and also because we've had people like DJ Spinner, on the show, who, like I said, selflessly really shared their time and their knowledge and experiences with all of us. If you did enjoy the conversation, please tag somebody in the comment section, and also share the video so that more people can see the video. Otherwise, besides that, all I can say is that, guys, let's stay creative. Peace out.